What matters the most when it comes to job satisfaction? Let's talk about 3 different scenarios. First of all, I make a lot of money, but... So I used to work at this recruitment company where I looked at a lot of resumes and online profiles for high-earning professionals, such as business development managers, lawyers, CEOs. These were basically professionals who were making hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. Something that always stuck with me though was seeing how many of them had walked out of these high-paying careers to become skiing instructors, gardeners, florists. In other words, they obviously weren't happy in their careers, and so had decided to look for jobs where they could have more of a work-life balance, as well as do work that feels a bit more meaningful to them, even if it means earning much, much less. Scenario number 2. I'm really passionate about my work, but later on, I ended up working in academia. Like a lot of other academics, I personally really loved the work that I did. I was really passionate about my research and the teaching. But the downside was that I was working all the time. I really felt that I was working 7 days a week, and not just during the day, but also at night. It's not so much that I don't want to work hard at my career, but I just felt that I was being overworked and underpaid considering the amount of work that I was doing. And so I had decided to leave academia and instead go for a job for an organization where they actually take a lot more pride in their staff having a work-life balance. And that was a bit interesting because I found ultimately that I was doing much less of the work, but I was technically getting paid more. But the downside is that I was really passionate about the work that I did in academia, and so when I left academia, it meant having to leave that work behind. Scenario number 3. I love the working conditions, but there are people I've spoken to who love their working conditions. They like their boss, they like their manager, their team, their work-life balance, their salary, but the only thing is that they're just not interested in the work. And on top of that, they feel that their work doesn't really set them up for career growth. So with all of that in mind, what matters most when it comes to job satisfaction? I decided to do some digging to see what the data has to say. There was a survey conducted by the Boston Consulting Group which investigated this. It surveyed more than 200,000 employees from 189 different countries on what matters most when it comes to their job satisfaction. What was the top factor for job satisfaction? Appreciation for your work. That's it. Simply having team members or a boss who say things to you like, "Thanks so much for doing that work," or "You did really good on that report, thanks for that." What were the top 10 factors? Here they are. Appreciation for your work, good relationships with colleagues, good work-life balance, and good relationships with superiors. The top 4 factors, in my opinion, suggest that a positive working environment is what matters the most. This says to me that if you ever have a toxic work environment where the people you work with are unsupportive or worse, they're workplace bullies, or you feel exploited or overworked in your job, then you should seriously consider looking for another job. Something else that's interesting here is salary. Salary is ranked at number 8. Salary is an interesting one to consider because if you feel like you are seriously being underpaid, then that can have a huge impact on your job satisfaction. But earning more money doesn't simply mean having a higher level of job satisfaction. Once your salary reaches a certain threshold where you no longer feel financially stressed and you do feel like you're being paid fairly, then any additional income after that doesn't actually make that much of a difference to your job satisfaction. In fact, there is research to suggest that once you've reached that threshold, that's when other factors such as whether you find the work meaningful or whether you feel like you have autonomy in your job, that's when those factors start to have a stronger influence on your level of job satisfaction. So, what can you take away from all of this? First of all, try to look for a job that pays you well enough that you can be financially comfortable. Better yet, a job that pays you well enough that you feel like you are being paid fairly for your work. This is an important distinction because technically it's possible for you to get paid enough money that you do feel financially comfortable, but at the same time, you feel like you are being underpaid for the work that you are doing. And if you do feel underpaid and exploited, considering how much you have to work or considering the working conditions, then this is the kind of thing that can create resentment and a lot of stress over time. Second, of course, you ideally want a job where the work feels meaningful and rewarding. But according to these survey results, if it's a choice between meaningful, rewarding work and a positive working environment, you're better off choosing a positive working environment. But it's worth keeping in mind that what matters the most when it comes to job satisfaction can be quite personal and can vary quite a lot from one person to the next. If you're someone who is interested in using interesting research findings to help you get ahead in life, please remember to subscribe. Have you been feeling a bit lost career-wise? If so, feel free to share your own thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. Thanks for watching.